Ethan had always lived life in neat, predictable lines, the kind of person who planned every detail and avoided surprises, yet on that rainy Tuesday evening, the rhythm of his life shifted in a way he never imagined. The sky had a gentle drizzle that painted the streets with glistening reflections of streetlights, the kind of rain that made people hurry under umbrellas, yet Ethan found comfort in walking slowly, enjoying the soft patter on his coat. He entered the small corner cafe he often visited, the warm smell of roasted coffee beans welcoming him, the sound of quiet chatter and clinking cups soothing in contrast to the storm outside. While waiting for his usual caramel latte, his attention was drawn to a woman at the counter, frantically trying to balance a teetering pile of papers in one hand while holding her coffee in the other, her expression a mixture of worry and embarrassment. Her hair, a rich chestnut, fell loosely over her shoulders, and when a gust of wind blew through the open door, it caught her papers, scattering them across the floor. Without thinking, Ethan stepped forward, his own sense of order compelled to intervene, and as he helped gather the scattered sheets, their hands brushed briefly, sending an unexpected warmth through him that made him pause for a fraction of a second. She looked up at him, her hazel eyes wide but softened by a shy, apologetic smile, and said, "Thank you. I'm Hannah." Ethan found himself momentarily caught off guard, and used to the sudden personal connection, yet drawn inexplicably into her presence. "Ethan," he replied simply, a small smile tugging at his lips as he offered her one of the papers she had dropped. There was something about her that felt familiar, as if he had known her in some unremembered past, though he knew it was impossible. She laughed lightly at her own clumsiness, a sound that seemed to echo softly in the cafe, and he realized he wanted to hear it again. Conversation sparked easily between them, flowing naturally from the scattered papers and the rainy weather to small anecdotes about work, favorite books, and childhood memories. Ethan found himself opening up in ways he hadn't allowed in years, speaking about trivial worries, quiet hopes, and the small routines he cherished, and to his surprise, Hannah listened with genuine interest, her gaze warm and attentive, never intrusive, yet somehow deeply affecting. She told stories of her life with the same ease, sharing experiences that were personal but not heavy, allowing him glimpses into her world without overwhelming him. He noticed the way her eyes lit up when she laughed, how her fingers nervously played with the edge of her coffee cup, and how even in her hurried movements she exuded a grace and vulnerability that made him ache quietly in his chest. The rain continued outside, a gentle backdrop to the unfolding intimacy within the small cafe, and Ethan became aware of how every detail of the moment, the soft hum of music, the distant chatter, the steam curling from their cups, seemed to heighten the significance of their meeting. For the first time in years, he felt curiosity and longing intertwining, a pull toward someone whose presence was simultaneously comforting and electrifying. He realized he wanted to know everything about her, yet also feared that wanting so much might disrupt the delicate magic of this accidental encounter. When the rain finally eased and the evening light began to dim, they stepped out of the cafe together, both reluctant to part, and walked under the glow of streetlights, sharing comfortable silences and small talk about the weather, their steps synchronized naturally despite having only just met. Ethan found himself memorizing the way she moved, the tilt of her head when she smiled, the sound of her voice even when she spoke softly, feeling an intensity that was entirely new to him, a mix of fascination, desire, and cautious hope. As they reached the corner where their paths diverged, both paused, neither wanting to say goodbye too soon, and Hannah hesitated before slipping a small piece of paper into his hand with her number scribbled on it, her fingers brushing his once again in a fleeting, electrifying touch. He watched her walk away, her figure retreating into the misty evening, feeling a strange emptiness and longing he hadn't anticipated, a fluttering in his chest that made his steps heavier and yet oddly lighter at the same time. When he finally reached his apartment, he placed his coat on the hook, his thoughts still tangled with images of her smile, her laugh, and the way her eyes seemed to see him in a way no one else had for years. Sitting down, he felt compelled to check his phone and, almost instinctively, opened a message that had just arrived from an unknown number. "I hope this isn't too forward, but can we meet again?" His heart leapt, a mixture of surprise, excitement, and cautious hope flooding through him. For the first time in years, the predictable patterns of his life were disrupted not by a mistake or misfortune, but by an unexpected connection, one that made him realize how fragile and fleeting yet extraordinary human encounters could be. Ethan felt a thrill and a nervous tension, a cocktail of emotions that left him both exhilarated and anxious. He knew little about Hannah, her past, her dreams, or the intricacies of her daily life, but the mere thought of seeing her again sent a warmth through him that made the mundane world outside his apartment feel dull in comparison. He replayed every moment of the evening in his mind, the accidental touch of their hands, the laughter that had come so naturally, the way she had listened to him with genuine interest, and the way her presence had made time slow, stretching each minute into something precious and memorable. It was startling how quickly she had affected him, how someone he had just met could leave such a profound impression on his heart and mind. The storm that had begun the day seemed symbolic, Ethan thought. The rain had washed the streets clean, altered the scenery, and somehow allowed the unexpected to enter his life, just as Hannah had. He realized that life had a way of presenting opportunities he never considered, moments that appeared by chance but carried the weight of significance, and he couldn't help but wonder if this was one of those moments. Ethan stared at the phone, unsure if he should reply immediately, his fingers hovering over the screen, caught between excitement and hesitation. Yet the undeniable truth was that he wanted to see her again, to know her, to explore the strange, compelling connection that had already begun to unfold between them. He thought about the way she had looked at him, the subtle shifts in her expression, the nervous yet genuine warmth in her smile, and he felt an unfamiliar vulnerability, a recognition that he was opening his heart to someone new after a long time of careful self-protection. That evening, as he sat by the window watching the last of the rain drip down the glass, Ethan understood something important: life didn't always follow the neat patterns he had drawn for it. Sometimes, it offered moments that disrupted everything, that challenged the careful walls he had built around his heart, and that brought an unexpected sense of wonder and possibility into even the most ordinary day. Hannah had entered his life without warning, without pretense, and without asking for permission. Yet the impact she left was undeniable. He felt a mixture of excitement, anticipation, and a nervous longing, the kind of feelings that made the world feel simultaneously vast and intimate. Ethan knew that the message on his phone marked the beginning of something unpredictable and potentially transformative, a journey into feelings he hadn't thought he would experience again. And as he set the phone down, staring at the reflection of the streetlights in the rain-soaked window, he realized that life had, in a quiet, unexpected way, invited him to step into a story he never thought would be his, a story that had begun with spilled papers, a nervous smile, and a fleeting touch in a small cafe on a rainy Tuesday. After that rainy Tuesday, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Hannah. Every detail of their meeting replayed in his mind, from the nervous sparkle in her eyes to the warmth of her smile, and he found himself seeking excuses to return to the cafe, hoping to run into her again, even though he had no idea how to approach her without seeming desperate. Surprisingly, life seemed to conspire in subtle ways, and they began encountering each other in small, accidental moments, once at the local bookstore, reaching for the same novel and laughing at the coincidence, another time at the city park, both caught by surprise as they tried to dodge a sudden drizzle, and each meeting felt like a story unfolding on its own, with the universe providing chances neither of them fully understood. With each encounter, their conversations grew longer and more personal. Ethan discovered her love for painting and quiet walks, her favorite spots for coffee and sunsets, while Hannah learned about his hidden talent for sketching and the small routines he cherished in his otherwise orderly life. Despite the brevity of these encounters, Ethan felt a growing pull toward her, an attraction that was no longer casual or accidental, and it scared him because it was unlike anything he had felt in years, an emotional intensity that mixed curiosity, longing, and a gentle fear of vulnerability. Hannah, too, felt a strange shift within herself. She had been cautious, carrying the weight of past disappointments and heartbreaks, but Ethan's calm, attentive presence made her lower her guard in ways she hadn't anticipated, and she began to crave the simplicity of his company, the warmth of his attention, and the comfort of someone who listened without judgment. One evening, as they walked along the river under the glow of streetlights, puddles reflecting the golden light, Hannah stopped and looked at him with a mixture of hesitation and sincerity. "Do you ever wonder why we keep running into each other like this?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Ethan felt a shiver of anticipation. Her words carried more weight than a casual question, and he realized he had been asking himself the same thing, the pattern of their meetings feeling almost like fate rather than chance. "Maybe it's not just coincidence," he replied quietly, unsure whether he was speaking out loud or merely voicing a thought he had kept inside for days. They continued walking, their steps synchronized, and Ethan noticed every subtle detail: the way her hair caught the streetlight, the nervous way she tucked a strand behind her ear, the softness in her eyes when she looked at him, and each detail seemed to draw him deeper, leaving him both exhilarated and anxious. Their conversation started to touch on more personal topics: childhood dreams, past regrets, favorite memories, fears, and hopes for the future, and Ethan realized that he was not just enjoying her presence but also trusting her with pieces of himself he rarely shared. Hannah, in turn, opened up about her ambitions, the moments that shaped her, and the quiet longing she had felt for a connection that was real, not superficial, and Ethan listened intently, understanding her in a way that felt natural and effortless. Every laugh they shared, every glance exchanged, created an invisible bond, a magnetic pull neither could ignore, yet both were aware of the delicate balance. They wanted to move closer but feared the consequences of exposing their hearts so soon. Over time, Ethan became aware of an ache in his chest, a gentle longing that grew stronger with each encounter, and he recognized that he had begun to feel something deeper than curiosity or admiration. He was developing feelings that scared him, feelings that made him hope for a future that was uncertain but irresistible. One evening, after a particularly long walk, they sat on a bench near the lake, the calm water reflecting the moonlight, a serene silence stretching between them. Ethan's heart thumped as he contemplated telling her how he truly felt, yet words seemed inadequate, and he feared the fragility of the moment might be lost if he spoke too soon. Hannah, sensing his tension, leaned slightly closer, her hand brushing his by accident, and the spark of connection intensified, leaving both of them aware that unspoken emotions hung in the air, thick and undeniable. She finally spoke, her voice low and tentative. "Ethan, I don't want this to end, even if it's complicated. There's something about you, something I can't explain." Ethan felt a surge of relief and excitement, realizing that he felt the same way, that the quiet longing in his heart mirrored hers, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine a life that included her, filled with small moments of shared laughter, warmth, and closeness. Yet, just as he was about to reach for her hand, a flicker of hesitation crossed Hannah's face, an unspoken worry that reminded him life wasn't always straightforward, that circumstances could intervene in ways neither of them could predict. They parted that evening with a lingering gaze, a promise of more without a word being said, and Ethan walked home feeling both elated and restless, unable to stop replaying the night, wondering what the future held, and realizing that his carefully controlled life had begun to unravel in the most beautiful, unexpected way. Days turned into weeks, and their encounters continued, each one deepening their connection, building a quiet intimacy that neither had planned but both cherished, and every moment together strengthened a bond that felt unbreakable yet delicate, like glass catching the sunlight. Ethan became acutely aware of his growing emotions, the way his thoughts constantly returned to her, the way his heart seemed to leap at the thought of seeing her again, and he realized that he could no longer ignore the truth: he was falling for Hannah, deeply and uncontrollably, and he feared the vulnerability that came with admitting it, even to himself. Hannah, equally affected, found herself smiling at the smallest reminders of him, replaying conversations in her mind, and discovering a warmth in her heart she hadn't felt in years, a mixture of hope, longing, and cautious excitement that made her both fearless and fragile at the same time. They began to share quiet secrets, subtle gestures of affection, and moments of emotional intimacy that transcended physical proximity, and each meeting left them yearning for the next, caught in a rhythm neither could resist, bound by a connection that felt both inevitable and astonishing. And yet, amid all the joy and warmth, there was an undercurrent of uncertainty. Life was unpredictable, and both knew that circumstances, distance, or past experiences could intervene at any moment, yet neither wanted to pull back, both willing to embrace the unknown, knowing that the bond they were forming was rare, precious, and worth the risk. As they said goodbye one evening, hands brushing in a lingering farewell, Ethan felt a mixture of anticipation, fear, and exhilaration, a cocktail of emotions that left him breathless, realizing that something profound had begun between them, a story unfolding in real time, full of tenderness, longing, and the promise of a connection that neither had expected but both knew would change their lives forever. The days ahead were uncertain, the path uncharted, yet Ethan and Hannah had discovered a rare magic, a quiet, unspoken understanding that sometimes, life gave you moments so unexpected and powerful that they could not be ignored, moments that challenged the heart, awakened emotions, and made one realize that love often arrived when least expected, carrying with it a mixture of vulnerability, hope, and joy. And as Ethan walked home that night, he knew with a certainty he had never felt before that Hannah had become indispensable to him, that their story was only beginning, and that the connection they shared would continue to grow, delicate yet irresistible, in the days, weeks, and moments that were yet to come, shaping the lives of both in ways neither could fully imagine. After weeks of small encounters, Ethan could no longer ignore the feelings that had been quietly growing in his heart. Each time he saw Hannah, every smile, every laugh, every fleeting glance seemed to pull him closer to a truth he had tried to suppress, that he was falling for her in ways he hadn't anticipated and didn't fully understand. Yet the more he tried to focus on his usual routines, the stronger the pull became, a magnetic force he could neither resist nor rationalize. The city seemed different now, every street, every park bench, every familiar cafe imbued with memories of their shared moments, and the thought of her lingered constantly in his mind, making work feel mundane and ordinary tasks strangely tedious, while every notification, every phone buzz, sparked a flutter of anticipation he hadn't felt in years. One late afternoon, unable to contain himself any longer, Ethan sent her a simple message: "Meet me at the cafe. I need to tell you something." He stared at the phone, heart pounding, unsure of what he would say or how she would react, the words he had rehearsed countless times in his mind suddenly seeming inadequate, yet he knew he had to be honest, had to take the leap that his cautious nature had always avoided. When Hannah arrived, there was a softness in her eyes, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, and the moment felt suspended, as if the world had paused around them, leaving only the intensity of unspoken emotions between them. Ethan struggled to find the right words, his throat dry and his hands trembling slightly, but finally, he spoke, voice low and earnest. "I don't usually do this, Hannah, but I can't ignore how I feel. Every time we meet, every time we talk, I feel something I never thought I would again. I like you. More than I expected, more than I can explain." Hannah's eyes widened, and for a moment, Ethan feared he had overstepped, that the fragile connection they had built would shatter under the weight of his confession, yet she reached out, brushing her hand gently against his, her fingers lingering, and whispered, "Ethan, I feel the same way. I've been afraid to say it, but I feel it too." Relief and exhilaration coursed through him, a rush of warmth and joy that left him breathless, as if a long-standing tension had finally released, leaving only clarity and an overwhelming sense of connection. They sat in silence for a few moments, letting the reality of their mutual feelings sink in, the small cafe fading into the background as if it existed only to witness this turning point in their lives. Each word, each glance, each small gesture between them now carried weight, and Ethan realized that every nervous smile, every shy laugh, and every shared story had been leading to this moment, the culmination of weeks of growing intimacy and mutual recognition. Hannah, her voice soft but firm, spoke of her fears, her past disappointments, the heartbreaks that had taught her caution, and Ethan listened with an intensity born of love and respect, understanding that their bond was not just about attraction but about trust, vulnerability, and a willingness to open their hearts despite uncertainty. He shared his own hesitations, his tendency to control and plan, and the fear he felt now that he was allowing himself to surrender to emotions he had long resisted, and in that exchange, they found a profound connection, a sense of unity that went beyond words. The air between them felt electric yet gentle, charged with emotion but soft with understanding, as if the universe had conspired to bring two cautious hearts together in perfect harmony, teaching them patience, empathy, and the beauty of shared vulnerability. As the cafe began to empty, the soft hum of conversations and the clinking of cups fading into the background, Ethan and Hannah leaned closer, hands brushing once more, and the unspoken promise of a new chapter hung between them, fragile yet undeniable. But just as the moment reached its peak, Hannah's expression shifted, her eyes clouded with hesitation, and Ethan noticed a subtle tension he hadn't seen before, a silent struggle playing across her features that made his chest tighten with worry. She took a deep breath and said, "Ethan, there's something I haven't told you yet," and the words sent a ripple of uncertainty through him, reminding him that even the strongest emotions could be complicated by life's unpredictability. Ethan reached for her hand instinctively, offering comfort and reassurance, and she hesitated for a heartbeat before continuing, I might have to leave the city soon. It's sudden, and I didn't want to burden you with it, but I couldn't keep it from you any longer." The revelation hit him like a wave. After weeks of emotional closeness, the possibility of distance threatened the fragile equilibrium they had built, and yet, looking into her eyes, he realized that love was about more than convenience, about more than timing. It was about choice and courage, about deciding to embrace connection even when circumstances were uncertain. He held her hands gently, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside. "Hannah, I don't want to let this go. We'll figure it out. Distance, changes, anything, it won't change what I feel. I'm willing to try if you are." A soft, almost hesitant smile spread across her face, and a tear glimmered at the edge of her lashes, a mixture of relief, hope, and emotion, and she whispered, "I am." In that moment, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of clarity and determination, a conviction that despite the unknowns, despite the potential hardships, this connection was worth pursuing, worth protecting, and worth nurturing. They embraced, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, clinging to the understanding that life's unexpected turns had brought them together, that the bond they had formed was resilient, and that the path ahead, though uncharted, was one they were willing to walk side by side. The city outside continued its rhythm, unaware of the quiet yet powerful transformation that had occurred within the small cafe, yet for Ethan and Hannah, the world had shifted, opening a door to vulnerability, intimacy, and a shared journey that neither had planned but both now embraced with courage and hope. Each step they had taken, each conversation, each moment of laughter and shared glance had built the foundation for this turning point, and the depth of emotion between them was undeniable, raw yet gentle, thrilling yet comforting, a blend of feelings that made their connection both exciting and sacred. As they left the cafe together, hands intertwined, hearts pounding in tandem, Ethan realized that life's most beautiful moments often arrived without warning, through small acts, chance meetings, and the courage to speak one's truth, and that sometimes, taking a leap of faith with someone who had quietly captured your heart was the only way to discover the extraordinary in everyday life. They walked through the streets, their fingers entwined, smiles soft but eyes bright with the knowledge that they had crossed a threshold, that their story had moved beyond tentative friendship into a realm of shared vulnerability and love, and that regardless of what challenges lay ahead, they had found something rare and profoundly meaningful. The night air was cool, the city lights casting a warm glow on their path, and Ethan felt a surge of emotion so intense it left him speechless, a mixture of gratitude, excitement, and awe at how life had brought him to this moment, to this connection, to Hannah, who had become an inseparable part of his thoughts, his hopes, and his heart. In the silence of their walk, they spoke little, yet every glance, every small smile, every subtle brush of hands conveyed more than words ever could, and Ethan understood that this was not just a fleeting infatuation but a deep, genuine bond, one built on trust, vulnerability, and mutual recognition of the rare, transformative power of love. And as they finally paused at the edge of her street, reluctant to part yet understanding that the night was ending, Ethan felt an inner resolve crystallize. No matter the challenges, the uncertainties, or the distance that might come, he would pursue this connection, nurture it, and honor the feelings that had unexpectedly, yet irrevocably, taken hold of his heart, because Hannah had awakened something within him that he had long thought dormant, a capacity to love fully, to hope courageously, and to embrace the beautiful, unpredictable story that life had begun writing for them both. After their heartfelt confessions, Ethan and Hannah spent the following days wrapped in a mixture of joy, anticipation, and quiet tension, the bond between them growing stronger with each shared moment, each laugh, each lingering glance, yet beneath the surface lingered the unspoken truth of Hannah's upcoming move, a reality that neither fully confronted, preferring instead to savor the immediacy of their connection while silently preparing for the challenge that loomed. They continued to meet in familiar places, the cafe that had first brought them together now a sanctuary of whispered conversations and soft smiles, the bookstore where they reached for the same book feeling like a private universe of coincidences, and the park where walks became long talks, exploring dreams, fears, and the little quirks that made them unique, while the rhythm of their growing intimacy carried both excitement and the delicate weight of impending change. Ethan noticed how every gesture of hers, from the way she tucked her hair behind her ear to the gentle brushing of her fingers against his hand, seemed charged with meaning, each touch a silent acknowledgement of the feelings they had admitted but had yet to fully act upon, and he realized that these moments, fragile yet powerful, had become the highlight of his days, leaving him restless when apart and elated when together. Hannah, too, felt the pull of their connection, the quiet assurance of Ethan's presence soothing a heart that had long been guarded, yet she could not ignore the tension of the future, the looming decision that had silently haunted her since the day she accepted a sudden work opportunity in another city, a decision made quickly, without consultation, but one she knew could change everything between them. One evening, as they walked along the riverbank beneath the soft glow of streetlights reflecting on the rippling water, the conversation drifted from mundane topics to deeper, more personal admissions, and Hannah paused, her expression clouded, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Ethan, I need to tell you something important, something I should have said sooner." Ethan's heart tightened, he sensed the gravity of her tone and braced himself for a revelation that could alter the course of their burgeoning relationship. She took a deep breath, her fingers nervously twisting a strand of hair, and said, "I've been offered a position in another city. It's a great opportunity, but it means I'll have to move soon. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to complicate what we have, but I can't hide it any longer." Ethan felt a rush of emotions, surprise, concern, and an unspoken fear of loss, but beneath the initial shock, a steady resolve began to grow. He held her hands gently, meeting her gaze with sincerity and quiet determination. "Hannah, I don't want to lose this, not now, not ever. Distance doesn't change how I feel. We can make this work if you're willing to try, and I promise I will do everything I can to be here for you." A tear slid down Hannah's cheek, a mixture of relief and hope mingling in her eyes, and she whispered, "I am. I don't want to lose us either," her voice fragile yet full of conviction. In that moment, the fears that had threatened to overshadow their connection seemed to dissolve, replaced by a shared courage, a decision to embrace the unpredictability of life and love, to step into the unknown together, hand in hand, hearts aligned despite the uncertainties. Over the next days, they planned small routines to stay connected, exchanging texts filled with encouragement, laughter, and subtle flirtation, video calls that allowed them to see each other's expressions, and weekend visits that made every hour together feel precious and irreplaceable, creating a rhythm that bridged the distance while deepening their emotional intimacy. Ethan marveled at how easily Hannah had become indispensable, how her thoughts were woven into the fabric of his days, how the anticipation of seeing her again was both a thrill and a comfort, and he realized that love was not about convenience but about commitment, intention, and shared courage in the face of challenges. Hannah, for her part, felt the power of their bond, the reassurance in Ethan's words, the quiet confidence in his gaze, and the steadfast presence that made her feel both cherished and safe, realizing that even though circumstances were shifting, their connection was anchored in something real and enduring, something worth every effort and every moment of uncertainty. They began to explore new ways of deepening their relationship, sharing more about their dreams, supporting each other's ambitions, and celebrating small victories and simple joys, creating a tapestry of memories that were theirs alone, proving that even when life's currents threatened to pull them apart, their hearts could remain aligned. One evening, as they sat on a park bench watching the city lights shimmer across the water, Ethan reached out, taking Hannah's hand in both of his, and said softly, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it. We'll figure it out together." Hannah smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder, feeling a warmth and certainty she had not allowed herself in years, a sense that despite the unknowns, they had chosen each other, and that choice was powerful, transformative, and beautiful. They spoke quietly about the plans ahead, balancing hope with realism, acknowledging the challenges but committing to nurturing their love despite them, and in every word, every glance, every shared silence, they found reassurance, strength, and a deepening intimacy that carried them through both excitement and fear. As days turned into weeks, the rhythm of their connection adapted to new realities, but the essence of their relationship remained unchanged, an unwavering emotional bond, mutual respect, tenderness, and a shared understanding that life's unpredictability could not diminish the love they had discovered. Ethan reflected on how far he had come from the man who feared surprises, realizing that the unplanned, the unexpected, and the deeply human moments he shared with Hannah had transformed him, made him braver, more open, and more willing to embrace love in all its complexity. Hannah, likewise, found courage and joy she had not expected, feeling a strength in vulnerability, the thrill of mutual affection, and the quiet satisfaction of a bond that was growing stronger with each passing day, proving that love was not just about proximity but about intention, commitment, and shared emotional presence. Their story unfolded with a mixture of tenderness, excitement, and anticipation, each day offering opportunities to connect, laugh, and support one another, and each moment reinforcing the realization that what they had was rare, precious, and worth protecting. And though the city around them continued its busy pace, oblivious to the quiet transformation taking place in their lives, Ethan and Hannah walked forward together, hands intertwined, hearts open, ready to face the challenges, distance, and unpredictability that life might bring, confident that their love, rooted in mutual understanding and courage, would endure, flourish, and continue to surprise them in ways they had never imagined, proving that sometimes the most extraordinary stories are those that begin unexpectedly, with simple gestures, fleeting glances, and the quiet decision to embrace the unknown with someone who has captured your heart. In the months that followed, they learned to cherish each meeting, each conversation, each small act of thoughtfulness, understanding that the strength of their connection lay not in convenience but in the deliberate choice to nurture, respect, and honor the love that had appeared when they least expected it. Every call, every message, every video chat became a thread weaving their lives together across the distance, a testament to the resilience of affection, the power of honesty, and the beauty of shared vulnerability. Ethan found inspiration in Hannah's dreams and ambitions, while Hannah drew strength from Ethan's steadfastness and empathy, creating a mutual support system that reinforced both emotional closeness and individual growth. The uncertainty of life no longer felt threatening. Instead, it became part of the adventure they shared, each challenge an opportunity to deepen trust, each separation a reminder of the value of their connection, and each reunion a celebration of the love that had grown from an unexpected encounter in a small cafe on a rainy Tuesday. And as they sat together one evening, watching the sun set over the city skyline, hands clasped and hearts full, they understood that the story they were writing together was far from over. It was a journey defined not by perfection or ease but by courage, emotional honesty, and the shared decision to embrace love, no matter how unexpected. And in that moment, Ethan and Hannah knew with quiet certainty that life's surprises, when met with openness and intention, could lead to the most beautiful, enduring, and meaningful experiences of all.